For the trial runs around Minmus, the KU would launch both of the ships unkerballed. The KU did not recognize the authority of the Alliance. Minmus was theirs even before the Alliance was ever created. This would force the hand of the Alliance to proceed with the blockade. The Charon's mission was simple: guard Minmus from illegal expansion at all costs. Many warnings were issued to the orbiting KU spacecraft around Minmus. All of them, however, fell on deaf ears. The ANS Charon would be told that it was in violation of KU space, and if it didn't leave immediately, it would be fired upon. The Charon would report back to the Alliance with the bad news. Every attempt at diplomacy had failed. The Alliance would reluctantly give the Charon the order that it was cleared to engage. For the very first time in Kerbal history, warfare was about to take place amongst the stars. Military weapons in space was still a very young science, and as such, they were prone to flaws and failures. A direct hit, but surprisingly, no damage. The Charon had to be resourceful. It had 2 targets and only 4 experimental torpedoes. If by the 3rd torpedo it could not destroy the KU colony ship, the mission would be labeled a failure. The KU colony ship had been finally taken down, but there was still one last enemy, and it was armed. While the Charon was busy trying to destroy the KU colony ship, the KUS Kopesh had snuck in and was now in firing range. The Kopesh was one of the world's most technologically advanced and deadliest warships. But if it's one thing that the KU needed to be reminded of, it's that space travel is not easy. The Khopesh was indeed a technological marvel. However, the KU failed to realize that without the help of the colony ship being able to bounce radio signals around Minmus, the Khopesh would be dependent of having a straight line of communications between it and Kerbal. Once behind Minmus, the communications would be blocked, and the Khopesh would be powerless. Realizing that the Khopesh was disabled, the Charon and her crew acted fast. Sadly, however, the experimental torpedoes were designed to be controlled from the ground. This unfortunate oversight by Alliance engineers would cause the Charon's final torpedo in its arsenal to suffer the same fate as the Khopesh. As small as Minmus is, it would only be a matter of minutes before the KU would re-establish connection with the Khopesh. If that happened, the Charon and her crew would face almost certain destruction. Out of options and low on time, the crew of the Charon would make a drastic decision. The Khopesh had been destroyed. The crew was alive, but the Charon had taken severe damage. The armor did what it was supposed to do. It protected most of the ship from the impact. The Charon's crew would try to patch up what they could, but systems were failing one after the other. They were running out of time. They needed to get back to Kerbal now. The Charon had brought her crew safely back home. However, the ship would be labeled a total loss, as the damage was simply too severe. Alliance scientists and engineers would get to work in designing and building a brand new, more powerful spacecraft. The KU and its allies would declare that the Alliance had committed an act of war. Being that the KU was the last country in the world to still produce fossil fuels, it would restrict these resources to itself and its allies only. The Trinity Seaport, one of the last major ocean trading hubs in the world that still traded fossil fuels, now found itself in dangerous waters. The KU would declare that anything inside of its territory, regardless of previous ownership, was now theirs, and they were coming to collect.